Good morning, afternoon, friends. Whenever you're watching this video live, this is Tracy Brown, your somatic nutrition therapist, and we are going to talk about emotional eating a little bit more today, but I want to cover some things that I rarely ever see mentioned, like online. I just don't see it, so I thought it would be something to maybe mention today. Is that oftentimes people talk about emotional eating as this is the way I cope when I'm sad or I'm bored or those kind of things. But I think we have to be more nuanced than that, because all attempts, whether we're restricting or eating past fullness or just eating when we're not full or not attuned to what would be satisfying, there's always a level there of like emotional under or overeating. But what I'm talking about really is like if we're eating, and this is, again, I talk about emotional eating in the absence of like, I need more calories, because most people come to me thinking they have a binging disorder, and really, or that they eat too much, or they're afraid of eating too much, and they're almost always under eating, even in people who, it doesn't matter the body size. It's like small, medium, or large. Most people are doing some restrictive eating in some kind of way, and certainly doing restrictive thinking about food. But we're not talking about that circumstance. We are really talking about, I am cool with eating all foods. I'm not really at a nutrient deficit here. This is really about eating when something feels like too much or not enough. And so I want to talk about a couple things that I noticed that, again, we're not talking about, which is oftentimes we're eating because there is just not enough play in our lives. And I know during a pandemic, there's not much play going on. And I've really been pushing people with their edges around, like, how can we be creative to find some kind of joy and hope in a time when it seems like, well, we're 6 months in, is this ever going to be different? And the likelihood of the answer is yes, we just don't know when. And so what are we doing in the meantime to get out of, honestly, routines that just don't work, and we end up at some point in the day or at the end of the day or after a week of feeling dissatisfied, not so much with our food, maybe so. I see a lot of people eating, just grazing somewhat sometimes because it's just the entertainment. And again, that's not inherently bad if you're really on top of it and you're really clear, like, I know I'm eating because this is my joy for the day. Then enjoy it. Be there with it, enjoy it, get the joy out of it, and move on. So I just want to put that out there too, that's definitely not the worst thing, but just recognize there's not enough joy. And after a while, the joy of eating will lose a little bit of its shine as well. So just kind of putting that out there to you. Another thing that I do not see mentioned online, hardly ever, is the idea that when there is not enough, if we don't feel like we have enough co-regulation, enough connection, enough feeling heard, seen and heard, we might eat to really feel something inside. And it's not because maybe there may not be a big overwhelm, but we might be eating to get full enough that fullness, that warmth, that sensation of like something, and like when I say fullness, I mean like really full. Not just like, oh, I'm good and full, I feel a little pressure, but like either really uncomfortable or almost uncomfortable. There you go. Then we might be eating, somebody said here, security. It's like, it may not be the security of like externals, like, finances or whatever. We're eating to feel like something's there for us. And that can bring some safety. And so if that need is overlooked, it may feel tricky and slippery to figure out, like, why am I doing this at 10 o'clock at night when everybody else went to bed? Well, it may be that we're doing it because we feel like, well, somebody's here, but we're not really here together. We're not really co-regulated. Yeah. And so I've got a person here live saying that food is like the only stable thing. Totally so. That could totally be right as well, that it's the only stability I have in this day. And again, that's super important, just to be able to name that. Now, I always talk about food as security, meaning like we all need food security, otherwise we will get anxious, right? But there's another way to see it, as like when things are anxious, can we use regular meals and snacks, yeah, like you're saying, as a form of stability. But where it falls off the edge a little bit is recognizing that food can only give us so much stability, and then the other needs are going to rise to the surface as well. Okay. I have a person here. I'm going to keep going with this because they're giving such good feedback. So a person said here, I tend to graze when people are around because of anxiety. Well, when I think of anxiety, it seems like fear and being really, really curious of, in those situations, are we able to accurately neurocept that these people are safe or not? That's the question I might have for you to think about, and you don't have to share if you don't want, but something we want to think about is what inside of us is saying that they are safe, they aren't safe, again, and how do we know inside what's true and what's not? And that will start to break some of the habitualization of eating when people are around because we're anxious. We want to get clear about like what inside me is saying that things aren't okay here right now. And how will we know if that's 2020 or I call it body time or memory time? Because if you're having sensations in your body that aren't in congruence with the current reality, then we know that this is old stuff. And sometimes when we say food is stability, it can be available and it is a constant. That's very true. And, and that may or may not be a bad thing if that's what you have. And it's really looking at like, do I feel like this is a problem? Am I okay with this? Or is there something else that I really would like? Okay, so if we're feeling anxious around people, and that might be, you want to dig deeper, like when I say anxious, does that mean fear of rejection? Does that mean fear of not being actually known or seen or heard? Does that mean fear of actually being hurt? You want to dig deeper of like what that's about. Okay, and if you're not okay with the eating, it's like, how do we work on the safety? That's their only option. It's like, okay, if I feel anxious around people, I need to have some co-regulatory support around what some part of me is saying is not okay and safe. But I also know that, like, goodness gracious, if you're eating to settle anxiety, then that's not the worst thing you could be doing, and we don't want to judge for that. Yeah, okay. So if we're feeling disconnected to people in the moment, even if you're around people, you want to get curious about what inside you is saying is not okay here with these people. Is it true of right now that it's true, or if this is old stuff? It's really important. But if you're around people but you feel disconnected, we're probably not enough in our bodies to know what's safe and what's not. And that's something we can work on with slowing down and with using our body as a resource. So it's your feet seating back, using weighted blankets, really taking some time and space to assess your situation. And that takes willingness to slow down and to settle and to have some other tools to help you settle, basically, besides the food, because that's what the food is about. We are eating to settle the system, to feel like something's there that's familiar or known, or just changing how you're feeling. And so I don't hear this talked enough about. I'm so glad, Corey, you hopped on to give some details and some nuance to this, and I hope this is really helpful to other people. If you are noticing like, oh, if my brain goes to not enough food, but really it's not enough safety, or not enough joy, or not enough play, or not enough true connection, or not enough being seen and heard. And so in absence of that, the faux window is more food. But we know ultimately that it's not what is satisfying those needs. Yeah. And so it's one of those things too that, like, sometimes purging along with that, it's not always about getting rid of the food. It's about just the overwhelming experience. And sometimes we use it to, like, again, settle again, to be numbed. And so that creates a looping. So I'd highly recommend, Corey, if you're not working with somebody that you are, around getting out of this looping, because it definitely can be done, and it doesn't actually have to take that long. It can be a relatively short period of time to get out of that cycle. So I hope you do reach out to me or somebody else who does that work as well, the somatic around the food. So thank you all so much for watching. I hope this video was timely, was helpful. If you felt that it was and you know other people that could benefit from this, please let them know as well. And until next time, I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.